What if I told you that the world's most elite universities don't actually create brilliant minds?
Right.
They just select them, brand them, and like take all the credit.
It's a bold claim.
It is.
Yeah.
Think about what usually goes through someone's mind when they get an acceptance letter to Harvard or Stanford or, Oxford. We treat it like the ultimate golden ticket,
Yeah,
right?
oh, absolutely. For the student, it feels like winning the hardest academic lottery on earth.
Exactly. And for the parents, it is this massive collective sigh of relief because the narrative tells us that the finish line has officially been crossed and, well, the future is secure.
But that's exactly the narrative we are challenging today.
Yes. Okay, let's unpack this because today we are diving into a stack of notes and excerpts centered around the Harvard Blueprint, Strategic Systems of Advantage. And this source material completely shatters that romanticized Ivy-covered narrative.
It really is a radical shift in perspective. What's fascinating here is that the author isn't looking at this institution through the lens of education or pedagogy at all.
Right, not at all.
They are looking at it through the cold, highly calculated eyes of a game theorist or a strategist. When they look at Harvard, they don't see a school with libraries and dining halls. They see a highly calibrated machine, a self-sustaining system of advantage.
And that is exactly our mission for you listening right now. We are not here today to debate whether Harvard has the smartest professors or the most beautiful campus or even the best classes.
That is entirely beside the point.
Right. Instead, our mission is to decode the exact mechanics of this machine. We want to take the engine apart, examine the gears, and more importantly, figure out how you can steal this exact blueprint to manufacture your own strategic advantages.
In your career, your business, and your life.
Exactly.
Because the underlying physics of how advantage is created operate the exact same way, whether you are sitting in a lecture hall in Cambridge, Massachusetts, or, sitting at your kitchen table trying to get a startup off the ground.
So before we can hack the system and apply it to ourselves, we have to understand the architecture. Like, how does an institution actually project all this global power without relying purely on what happens inside a classroom?
Because calculus is calculus wherever you learn it.
Right.
The traditional narrative assumes the power comes from a superior education, translating directly to a superior job. But our source argues the true power is built on an infrastructure of risk reduction.
Risk reduction. Okay, break that down for me.
Well, in any market, whether we are talking about corporate recruiting, venture capital investing, or even finding a reliable co-founder, human beings are fundamentally terrified of uncertainty.
Oh, sure.
We simply do not have the cognitive bandwidth or the resources to deeply, intrinsically evaluate every single person we interact with.
So we outsource the vetting process. The source actually uses this phrase, signal strength. It implies that the brand name isn't just a logo.
Right, it's a transmission.
Yeah, a very loud, very clear transmission to the labor market. It's like having an incredibly exclusive global VIP club. But instead of just checking your ID at the door, the bouncer permanently stamps your forehead with a seal of approval.
I love that analogy.
It tells every hiring manager, hey, don't worry about digging into this person's background. We already did the hard work. We subjected them to a brutal filtering process, and they survived.
That cognitive outsourcing is the entire point. If we connect this to the bigger picture, a hiring manager looking at a stack of 500 resumes is overwhelmed.
Yeah, they are just looking for a reason to say no.
Exactly. But when they see that specific institutional name, their brain registers a shortcut. The signal flashes like low risk, pre-vetted for capability and discipline.
Wow.
The institution's actual product isn't necessarily the education. Its product is risk reduction for the broader market.
But a signal is just a flash of light, right? I mean, it gets you in the room, it gets your resume to the top of the pile.
But what happens once you actually sit down at the table?
Exactly. The source points out that a signal alone isn't enough to sustain lifelong power. It pivots to this idea of how networks function differently at this level.
And this is where the mechanics shift from getting in the door to rewriting the rules of the room entirely. We are talking about closed-loop, self-reinforcing systems.
You don't just attend this place.
No, you permanently enter its ecosystem. And because human psychology dictates that people naturally trust their own in-group, the people within that network look to their own closed loop first when distributing resources.
I want to pause on that because people always say, every college has an alumni network.
Right. But this is structurally different.
Yeah. It feels like we are talking about something much heavier than a casual mixer with lukewarm coffee and name tags.
It is entirely different. Think of it like having access to a private, localized currency.
Okay, a private currency.
In the outside world, you have to prove your credit score and build trust from scratch with every single transaction. But inside this specific network, your currency is pre-approved by the shared experience and the mutual signaling.
So things just move faster.
Much faster. Transactions, whether that is hiring a new executive, funding a seed round, or passing legislation, happen 10 times faster and with a fraction of the friction.
That's incredible.
The network continuously feeds itself the most lucrative opportunities before the outside market even knows those opportunities exist.
It's a private economy. And to insulate that private economy, the source brings up the sheer weight of time, like centuries of accumulated credibility.
Yes, the institutional legacy.
Right. The institution doesn't just react to the global market. It has enough mass to act as its own gravitational pull. It actively shapes industries and governments.
It's true.
That legacy acts like a massive anchor, ensuring that the value of their private currency doesn't crash every time there is a new trend in higher education.
Precisely. You have the signal to reduce risk, the closed-loop network to accelerate transactions, and the legacy to protect the value of both over time. That is the architecture.
Okay, let's unpack this further, because knowing the architecture explains why the machine is powerful, but I really want to dig into the day-to-day laws that govern it.
The mechanics of power.
Right. And here is where it gets really interesting, because I have to push back on something that feels incredibly cynical in the text.
Go ahead.
The text claims that selection drives value. It essentially says that by purposely rejecting 95% of people, they manufacture an artificial scarcity that inflates the perceived worth of the remaining 5%.
Well, artificial scarcity is a potent economic driver.
Right, but wait, let me challenge this. Are we really saying that actual tangible skill doesn't matter?
Not quite.
Because if I am hiring a structural engineer to build a suspension bridge, I don't give a damn about their private currency or their artificial scarcity.
Of course not.
I care if the bridge is going to fall down. Doesn't this whole signaling theory completely fall apart the second you need hard, verifiable technical skills?
This raises an important question, and it is the exact friction point where many people misunderstand the strategy.
Okay.
The source is not arguing that technical skill is irrelevant or that an incompetent person can build a bridge just because they have a fancy degree.
Good, because that would be terrifying.
What it argues in Lesson 1, Signaling is Strategy, is that technical skill is merely the baseline requirement. It's the floor, not the ceiling.
Oh, I see. So you still have to know the math.
You absolutely have to know the math. But if there are 1,000 engineers who all know the math perfectly, how does the firm decide who gets the partnership? They don't have the time to test all 1,000 equally. The signal acts as the ultimate tiebreaker. Perception is not a replacement for reality, but in a crowded, high-speed market, perception is the gateway to even being allowed to prove your reality.
Communicating the value of your work is just as strategic as the work itself,
Exactly.
which flows right into the text's second lesson about the math of human relationships. The idea that networks compound. The source notes that opportunities aren't just what you know, but who knows you.
Yes.
But I love that they emphasize the word compound. It's not linear.
No, it is exponential. If you make one highly strategic connection within this closed loop, you haven't just added one person to your Rolodex.
Right.
You have successfully integrated yourself into a highly connected node. That one node represents access to an entire cluster of resources. It is literal compounding interest applied to human access.
Wow.
The ultimate advantage of the institution is that it provides a massive, unearned initial deposit into that compounding account at age 18.
And working in tandem with that compounding network is lesson 4 from the text, which completely redefines the concept of brand.
Yes, brand is a long-term asset.
The source defines a strong brand as accumulated trust over time. Not a logo, it's not a viral marketing campaign.
Marketing is what you loudly say about yourself to anyone who will listen. Accumulated trust is what the market inherently believes to be true about you before you even enter the room.
It works 24 hours a day.
It does. It is the halo effect operating at maximum efficiency.
So what does this all mean? If we look at this underlying math fun, the psychology of risk reduction, the compounding nodes of access, the undeniable weight of accumulated trust, it paints a picture of a system that is entirely bulletproof.
It can certainly seem that way.
Yeah. If I'm listening to this right now and I didn't go to one of these elite gate-kept institutions, it sounds like the game is rigged. It almost implies I'm permanently locked out of the VIP club and destined to just scrape by on the outside.
If the analysis stopped there, it would be a very fatalistic conclusion. But the source explicitly introduces a critical reality check.
Okay, good.
It proves that this machine, as powerful as it is, has severe limitations. It is not an automatic escalator to the top.
Let me try out a different analogy here to see if I'm grasping the mechanism. The way we usually talk about these schools, we treat the degree like it's a magic wand.
You wave it, and success happens.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But based on this blueprint, it's not magic at all. It is more like an industrial military-grade exoskeleton.
Oh, wow. Okay, I like where this is going.
You strap yourself into this massive network and signal, and suddenly you have the potential energy to lift 10 times more weight than a normal person. It is a stunning mechanical advantage.
That is a much more accurate framework.
But like if you strap into the exoskeleton and you just stand there waiting for it to do the work for you.
It does absolutely nothing.
Right, it just sits there completely inert. If you don't actually flex your own muscles and initiate the movement, you might even collapse under the sheer weight of it.
I think that captures the reality perfectly. The system provides incredible leverage, but it does not generate the initial kinetic energy. The source is remarkably blunt about how the system can backfire. The financial debt can be paralyzing. The hyper-competitive environment can completely shatter a person's intrinsic motivation and replace it with a hollow desire for status.
And frankly, it can create a false sense of security. People sit in the exoskeleton and atrophy.
Yes.
There are Harvard grads who completely flame out because they wait for the signal to do the heavy lifting.
Which brings us to the most crucial line in the entire text. It says, "A strong system does not guarantee individual success."
A strong system does not guarantee individual success.
We have to separate the mechanics of the institution from the agency of the individual. There are thousands of spectacularly influential people who never went anywhere near Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Right.
The profound insight here is that the system only provides the advantage. The individual must actively activate it.
Activate it.
Yes. If you have access to a compounding network, but you lack the courage or the strategic insight to actually leverage those nodes, the network is useless to you.
And this is where we flip the script for the listener. Because the ultimate advantage relies entirely on the individual activating it. The actual physics of the strategy, the blueprint itself, is completely open source.
Exactly. We can pivot from analyzing their machine to building yours.
This is where strategy literacy becomes a tangible superpower. The author addresses this directly when talking to parents and young professionals. People constantly look for security in a brand name.
They want a safe bet.
But the text argues we should be actively evaluating our lives based on return on positioning.
Return on positioning.
I love that phrase. It's not just about what you are learning, but where you are standing while you learn it.
Right. Who is adjacent to you? What specific rooms does this project give you access to?
So how do we actually do this? How does the listener construct this return on positioning without spending $250,000 on an Ivy League sticker?
By fundamentally shifting the questions we ask. The question is no longer, how do I get into the elite club?
Okay, then what is it?
The question is, how do I engineer the exact same strategic mechanics in my current environment? The source lays out a very actionable DIY blueprint. Starting with step 1, engineer your own signals.
Right, if you don't have the bouncer stamp on your forehead, you have to build undeniable proof of your capability. And we aren't talking about writing detail-oriented hard worker on a resume.
You're not.
That's a claim, not a signal.
Exactly. A signal must be verifiable and costly to fake. If you are an engineer, your signal isn't a degree. It is a repository of complex, open-source code that thousands of people actively use.
Oh, that makes sense.
If you are a marketer, your signal is a deeply researched public teardown of industry trends that goes viral among CEOs. You have to create permissionless proof.
Permissionless proof.
You are essentially doing the hard work of vetting yourself in public so the hiring manager doesn't have to.
You are loudly broadcasting, hey, low risk, high execution to the market. Okay, what about the private currency? How do we hack a compounding network if we aren't invited to the alumni dinner?
The source is clear that you cannot passively wait to be discovered. You have to manufacture the notes.
Oh.
And you don't do that by sending generic LinkedIn messages asking for a coffee chat or to pick someone's brain. That is extracting value.
Oh, nobody likes those messages.
Right. To integrate into a closed loop, you must inject value.
So you find a highly connected node in your industry, like a key player, and you identify their specific bottleneck.
Yes. You figure out what problem is keeping them up at night, and you solve it for them for free.
Wait, really? For free?
Yes, you do the research, you build the prototype, you run the data. By solving a critical problem for a supernode, you instantly buy your way into their compounding network.
Wow.
They now trust you, and because they trust you, their entire network inherently trusts you. You have manually engineered the closed-loop advantage.
That is brilliant. It's a completely different approach to networking. It's networking through execution. And the final piece of the blueprint is developing that long-term asset, the accumulated trust or the brand.
Building a brand without institutional backing requires radical, borderline obsessive consistency.
Obsessive consistency.
You have to become the default answer to a very specific, high-value problem in your industry. You deliver on your promises so repeatedly and with such high quality that your reputation begins to precede you into the room.
So over a decade, that consistency crystallizes into the exact same halo effect that a university relies on.
Precisely. The university is really just an accelerator.
It speeds up the timeline, but it does not own the physics of success. The tools, the risk reduction, the compounding connections, the trust building, they are just tools. You can pick them up right now.
Strategy is not determined by where you start. It is determined by how deliberately you design the path forward.
Okay, let's bring this all together. What we've learned today from diving into the Harvard Blueprint is that an elite institution is best understood as a machine made of 3 specific gears.
A loud signal to reduce market uncertainty.
A compounding network that accelerates trust.
And a legacy that protects its value.
The biggest trap you can fall into is believing that the machine creates the success. It doesn't. It just provides the exoskeleton.
Once you understand how the mechanics of advantage actually work, you can build your own signals, construct your own networks, and accumulate your own trust entirely on your own terms.
It is an incredibly empowering framework once you strip away the romance.
And as we wrap up, I want to leave you with a final thought to ponder. Something that builds on where this source material leaves off.
Okay, let's hear it.
We've established that this traditional power structure relies heavily on physical scarcity, the limited number of seats in a lecture hall, and the slow accumulation of legacy.
Right.
But look at the friction point we are approaching right now. We are rapidly moving into a world dominated by artificial intelligence and decentralized, globally connected communities.
Oh, wow. So the very nature of how we evaluate human potential is shifting.
Dramatically. We are building digital systems that can instantly parse, evaluate, and filter human talent based on actual, verifiable output.
Which is way faster than any legacy admissions office.
Vastly more accurate, too. So the provocative question is this. What happens to that old-world accumulated trust in the next decade?
Yeah.
Will the ultimate signal of your worth still be the name of a gate-kept institution you attended 20 years ago? Or will it be a dynamic, undeniable digital track record of your actual problem solving?
A portfolio living entirely in the cloud.
Exactly. Governed by a system that no ivy-covered wall can possibly contain.
Will the forehead stamp finally become obsolete? That is a fascinating question to leave on. Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today. Keep building your own blueprint, keep engineering those signals, and we will catch you next time.